I'm Britt Clennett in Hong Kong and welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. President Xi tells world leaders to reject protectionism on day 2 of summit in Beijing. North Korea sparks alarm again with another launch, claiming this one is capable of carrying a large nuclear warhead. Chief Executive C.Y. Leung admits amending LegCo probe document into his dealings with energy firm UGL. First up, Chinese President Xi Jinping told world leaders to reject protectionism as he outlined his plan for the country's Belt and Road Initiative today. Delivering his vision for the Global Trade and Investment Initiative on day 2 of the summit in Beijing, Xi underlined the importance of free trade. The Chinese leader says coordinating policies between countries is increasingly important in this interconnected age. His comments come amid criticism that the initiative is a way for Beijing to exercise its global power, as the project will be navigated by Beijing's interests.
We must have a spirit of partnership, firmly adhere to joint consultation, joint construction and sharing, and make policy coordination, facilitate connectivity, unimpeded trade, financial integration and people-to-people bonds our common goals. We must adhere to cooperation in opening up, achieving win-win in cooperation, not walling ourselves up, not establishing high threshold, not making exclusive arrangements and opposing protectionism.
Well, we're now joined by Dan Epstein in Beijing for more details.
Well, all in all, it's been a great success for President Xi Jinping and his signature policy, the Belt and Road Initiative. With it, he's really casting himself as a new leader for openness, a new leader for globalization. Today, he denounced any forms of protectionism. He's used all the catchphrases, including win-win cooperation, and he announced further hundreds of billions of yuan in investment into the project. Now, many, especially of the developing nations, are looking upon this very favorably, seeing this as an opportunity for some much-needed investment into their countries. And all in all, there were representatives from 100 different countries represented at the forum. But many in the West are still skeptical, still need to be convinced. For example, some here say that they wish that the document presented by China's leadership about the plan use more internationally accepted language. Now, another example, Matthew Pottinger, representing the American delegation, said that he hopes that there's transparency with regards to the plans and fairness with regards to carrying out the plan. So this is just an example that Western nations really still need to be convinced if this is truly to be the face of the new form of globalization.
Well, turning to North Korea's latest missile test, and Japan says the launch over the weekend shows the country has made strides in its weapon capabilities, although South Korea says more analysis is needed. Eve Johnson reports.
Pyongyang's latest missile test rattling its neighbors. Japan on Monday saying the launch shows a step forward in North Korea's weapons program. The weekend test was the first success following a string of failures. The missile flew for 30 minutes before dropping into the sea between Japan and North Korea. Longer and further than a test from the same location in February.
With this launch, we see some progress within their ballistic missile development, which is why, as a government, we hold on to our claim that we've entered a new level of threat regarding North Korea.
North Korean state media on Monday trumpeted the missile's success. Pyongyang says the launch tested whether the missile could deliver a heavy nuclear warhead. Leader Kim Jong-un warning the U.S. mainland is in, quote, sighting range for a strike. But South Korea is warning its neighbor shouldn't be taken at its word.
We think more analysis is needed to verify North Korea's claim of achieving progress with its missile technology and creating a reliable rocket engine.
Washington calls the launch a message to South Korea, just days after new President Moon Jae-in took office.
Well, for more details from the ground, here's Joseph Kim in Seoul.
North Korea, through its state media, said it successfully test-fired a new type of mid-long-range missile capable of mounting a nuclear warhead. The claims come at a time of high tension on the Korean peninsula, where rhetoric is ratcheting up. But Pyongyang's latest rocket launch shows that it's indeed improving its capabilities, especially given the trajectory and duration of the rocket. The missile flew 787 kilometers, reaching an altitude of 2,111 kilometers and being in the air for 30 minutes. But despite the technical advancements, South Korea's military downplayed the improvements, saying that it needed more analysis. Still, the rocket launch comes just days after South Korea elected its new president, Moon Jae-in, who has advocated for dialogue with Pyongyang, hoping to use both diplomacy and pressure to curb North Korea's nuclear and missile program. But this latest launch will prove to be a difficult first test for the administration. Still, the international community is denouncing the move, saying that North Korea's threat is growing more imminent.
Local news now, and Chief Executive C.Y. Leung is under fire after admitting he was in touch with pro-establishment lawmaker Holden Chow regarding LegCo's probe into his $50 million deal with Australian firm UGL. But he rejected accusations he is interfering in the legislature's independence. That's after the LegCo Secretariat found the CE office made changes in a document submitted by Chow. The document was supposed to advise the LegCo committee on the scope of investigation. Pan Democrats say it's now tarnished the panel's credibility. But Leung says he has the right to take part in the probe as the subject of investigation.
Now, after all, the Legislative Council Select Committee has proposed to use more than a month to carry out the study. And they have set themselves a timeline, a deadline of June next year. To finish the study. And since we have plenty of time, so why don't we include all the questions that have been asked so far, and not just the ones limited to the draft scope study.
Well, for more insight, we're now joined by legal sector lawmaker Dennis Kwok. Dennis, C.Y. Leung has admitted that he did make the comments. Is it legal? Does he really have the right to comment, as he claimed?
No, this is the completely inappropriate way of doing it. The proper way for any target of an investigation is to contact the Secretariat of the Select Committee and make his comments or questions to the whole Select Committee in an open manner, and not to secretly lobby one of the members on the committee and to feed comments and questions through him in an underhanded way. This is a completely inappropriate way of doing it.
Well, Dennis, reports say the Chief Executive Office amended a document of the committee. Is there any conflict of interest here? Is it an example, say, of executive power interfering with legislative power?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, the document in question is the scope of the investigation. And who's the target of the investigation? The Chief Executive himself. So for the Chief Executive, being the target of an investigation, to sort of using an underhanded way to change and lobby the scope of the investigation, to add in elements that he thinks should be looked into and delete others, that is completely inappropriate, and it's completely tarnished the Select Committee's investigation.
Thank you very much, Dennis Kwok, a legal lawmaker. And in other local news, 15 more computer systems in Hong Kong have been hit by cyber attacks amid a global ransomware wave targeting tens of thousands of computers across 150 countries since Friday. According to the Hong Kong Computer Emergency Response Team, the ransomware WannaCry infected 17 systems in total. With people across Hong Kong heading back to work this morning, experts warned of heightened risk. Meantime, Secretary for Innovation and Technology, Nicholas Young, said the software hadn't affected any government's computers so far.
Government computers are always under threat, so the Office of the Government Chief Information Officer adopts an effective measure to tackle these attacks. I can't reveal further details because that may help hackers to learn how to deal with our system, but we will stay alert.
And we will bring you all the market reactions to that major cyber story later in the show, so do stay tuned for that. While in other local news, a father who forced his young son to cross the road on his knees as a punishment has been handed down a 12-month probation order by the Kwun Tong Magistrates Court. The incident happened back in January. The man told his 8-year-old boy to crawl across the road because he was unhappy with the school results. But after reading the probation officer's report, the judge said the man was a responsible and loving father. He added that he was under stress and taught his son a lesson in an inappropriate way. He is now learning that lesson himself the hard way. Earlier, he pleaded guilty to the charge of ill treatment towards a child in his care. Well, it's that time of the year again when air conditioners are being switched back on as Hong Kong heads towards the hotter months. But do remember to keep an eye on your electricity bills, the Consumer Council warns. In a study, it tested 14 samples of split-type air conditioners, despite claiming to have the same level of energy efficiency. The study showed they could, in fact, consume very different amounts of electricity. It warned there could be as much as a 24% difference in the cost of running them. A word of caution to parents as well, as the council found high levels of bacteria in some soap bubble toys. Among the 12 samples tested, this Disney Princess Bubble Water Blaster contained bacteria and microorganisms almost 5 times the European Union's safety limit. The Consumer Council warned exposure to this soap could lead to serious infection, especially if it comes into contact with open wounds. Time for a break, but don't go away.